This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Democrat challenger Joe Biden poised to secure a bid for the White House. Ivorian opposition leader Pascal Affi N'Guessan placed under arrest for creating a rival government. And we look at the latest regional efforts to help secure peace in Libya. Hello, welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Ntah, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. We examine the likely impact of the U.S. presidential elections on trade relations with African countries. And in sports, the 2022 Africa Cup of qualifiers to go ahead behind closed doors. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. I'm Richard Ntah. So good to have you with us. Let's begin in the United States, where U.S. Democratic challenger Joe Biden is projected to defeat Donald Trump in the U.S. presidential elections. According to the Associated Press, Biden has managed to reach the required 270 Electoral College votes. Biden narrowed the poll margins in the final moments of the race as states counted the remaining mail-in ballots. President Donald Trump is yet to concede defeat. All right, let's get more on this. We're now joined by Toby Muse in Washington to give us more details on these developments. Toby, thank you for joining us as always here on Africa Live. The news that America and the whole world has been waiting for is finally here. Bring us up to speed with the latest developments in the U.S. presidential race. Toby.
Indeed, this really is breaking news. It was about half an hour ago, the all-important news agency, the Associated Press, called this election for Donald Trump. They said, had called the election for Joe Biden. They said Biden had won that all-important state of Pennsylvania with its 20 electoral college votes. I'm actually here in Black Lives Matter Plaza, which is about half a mile away from the White House. And within minutes, you heard a cheer go up from the crowd. And I'm looking down on this intersection. And since then, more and more people have turned up. There's a celebratory mood here. Obviously, Washington, D.C. is a very democratic city. But I don't know if you can hear that cheer behind me, but it's just been constant. Now, Donald Trump has reacted. His campaign has put out a statement, and it's clear that they are not accepting this result. Donald Trump's statement said things like, legal votes decide who is president, not the news media. Now, the campaign by Joe Biden has said that he is grateful for this. He is looking forward to being a president of the United States. But as I say, Donald Trump is not conceding this election and is in fact saying that on Monday, his legal challenge to these counts, these vote counts in these different states will begin. Richard?
Well, speaking of Donald Trump and his reaction, that brings me to my next question. How strong is Donald Trump's contestation of the elections? I mean, what should we expect from Donald Trump and his legal team?
Well, that really is the question of the hour. How strong a case does Donald Trump have? According to some, even in his own party, not a very strong one. We have seen in these days, since the election count, as they've been counting these votes in the states, people within the Republican Party saying they have not seen evidence of widespread fraud that could conjure up the tens of thousands of votes that Joe Biden has in states like Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania. These are Republicans saying that, and they are calling, some Republicans are calling Donald Trump's accusations of vote theft, vote fraud. They're saying it's dangerous, it's irresponsible. People are getting, Donald Trump supporters are getting angry, they're saying, and this could lead to a dangerous high levels of polarization and just high levels of tension. So we're going to see how this goes. Again, Joe Biden has been giving a very different image in these recent days, more calm, quietly optimistic, saying when all of the votes are counted, I think I will become the president. That's been the message from Biden's camp. And again, today he received the news in that vein, very calm, grateful for the votes he said he had received. And as he said, looking forward to be president of the United States for the next 4 years.
Indeed, Toby, with what you've just said, the country is clearly torn. Well, what is Joe Biden likely to do in order to heal a country so torn apart politically? What do you think Joe Biden has planned, and what would be his first steps?
America is facing massive crises at the moment. There's the economic impact of the pandemic. There's the pandemic itself. We are seeing record numbers, six-digit figures in new infections per day in recent days. We've never seen. These are records of the pandemic, and it's this deeply polarized country. Joe Biden has so much work ahead of him. How to bring the country together, I don't know. And frankly, no one really knows. Joe Biden says that he's going to bring it together through the nation needs to heal. But to see actual concrete plans, we haven't really seen them anymore. We've seen these very calm, optimistic sounding tweets that he puts out, but sometimes they can almost come across as platitudes. It's time for the nation to heal. Okay, but how is he going to do that? Now, admittedly, this has been a very stressful week. They've had their mind focused on the recounts, on trying to count all of the votes and trying to win the election. But as he goes forward, I think he is going to have to come forward with more concrete plans on how to bring this deeply, deeply polarized nation together. Richard?
All right, Toby Muse, let's leave it there for now. And as always, excellent reporting. Great update. Thank you to Toby Muse speaking to us live from Washington, D.C. Now, here's some information on the projected winner of the U.S. election, Joe Biden. He's 77 years old and served as the 47th Vice President of the United States for 2 terms under the Obama administration. He was elected senator from Delaware in 1972 and served 6 terms. Biden briefly worked as an attorney before becoming the longest serving senator from the state. He has become a leading figure in the national debate about gun control, advocating for more checks on gun ownership. Biden was honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2017 by President Obama. And now here's some information about Kamala Harris, who will be Biden's vice president. 56-year-old Harris is the first woman of color to be nominated for national office by a major political party. She was elected a senator from California in 2016. She previously served as the state's attorney general. Well, experts are divided over what the U.S. election outcome will mean for trade relations with African countries. The African Growth and Opportunity Act, which gives African countries tariff-free market access to the U.S., will expire in the next 5 years, and some sectors are hoping that Donald Trump's crippling tariffs will ease under a Joe Biden administration. Samitra Naidu has more from South Africa.
Under the Trump administration, some of the benefits of AGOA were offset by a 25% global steel and aluminium tariff. The U.S. also played hardball, insisting on increased exports of U.S. chicken to South Africa.
We needed to allow 65,000 tons of poultry meat to be exported to South Africa. The local poultry industry was against that because at the time we had an anti-dumping duty for poultry against the US of R9.30. It's a specific duty and it was obtained within the rules of the WTO. So what the AGOA quota did was really to allow imports from the US to come into South Africa, excluding the anti-dumping duty.
The trade war with China has also made it hard for African countries to prioritize beneficial trade deals.
We know that China has been a challenge to the US with regard to overtaking it as the largest economy. And President Barack Obama and those before him have been fighting this. But what President Trump just did, he came out and almost made it clear to the rest of the world that you are either China's friend and you are my enemy, or the other way around.
But there's been moves in Africa to limit dependency on trade with the U.S. and other Western countries. The African Continental Free Trade Area will become the largest trading bloc in the world if implemented correctly.
Life after AGOA means intensifying the African Free Trade Agreement so that there are not as many divisions among African states. so that when the US tries to negotiate with one country, it gets forced to negotiate with the African Union rather.
There is, I think, a need for countries to be pursuing at the national level their own trade and development agenda, and that's where bilateral trade agreements come in place. Now, if we look at the African Continental Free Trade Agreement as a bloc, as opposed to countries having these bilateral trade agreements.
Whichever way this election goes, there's still no guarantee that AGOA will be renewed for a third decade. The duty-free agreement came into play during the Bush era and is set to expire in 2025. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. The news continues. We'll see you on the other side of the break with more news. Here's a look at what's ahead. We look at the latest regional efforts to help secure peace in Libya.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
I've been Tunis,
Sharia,
Juba,
Johannesburg,
Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. On to Cote d'Ivoire now, where opposition leader and former Prime Minister Pascal Affi N'Guessan has been placed under arrest for creating a rival government. This after President Alassane Ouattara disputed election victory. N'Guessan was arrested overnight after the public prosecutor confirmed that he was being sought by the police. Ivorian prosecutors are pursuing terrorism charges against more than a dozen opposition leaders who boycotted the October 31st vote. The leaders also announced they were creating a transitional council. The current standoff has raised fears of protracted instability in the West African nation. In 2010, if you would remember, a disputed presidential election led to a brief civil war.
The opposition parties and groups call for the opening of a civil transition in order to create the conditions for a fair presidential election, transparent and inclusive.
The call for civil disobedience leads to acts being committed in certain locations across the country which are considered criminal offenses. These acts are such as terrorism, murder, grievous bodily harm, distribution of false information, burning of vehicles, theft and destruction of election materials.
And over in Egypt, 12,000 judges will be monitoring the second phase of parliamentary elections this weekend. More than 31 million citizens in 13 governorships are eligible to vote. The first phase of elections registered low voter turnouts at less than 30%. And as CGTN's Adel Al-Mahroui reports, Egypt is trying to make this next phase more attractive to voters.
Loud music and flashy decorations at every polling station. Egypt is organizing a flashy parliament election to attract more voters.
The party has ordered all members of the Mustaqbal Watan party to intensify the efforts in their districts. We had to make more tours, reach out to the people to create more awareness so they would vote. This happened across the country. It's why turnout today appears to be picking up more than last time.
Layla Abdulrahim was resting a bit after her vote. It was a kind of a hassle for the 79-year-old Egyptian to come here. She believes casting her ballot is a duty she cannot skip.
I've never missed any election for Egypt. It's a dogma that I have to select whom will rule me for the coming years. and I trust the government, and I trust my judgment. That's it. Although I am so tired today, but I think the last parliament did a good job, but not the one I was looking for. Hoping that this one will do a better job.
Laila wasn't the only one who crossed over the barrier of age to join the election. The age category of those voting during the early hours of the polls appeared to tip towards the higher figures of the age spectrum. Egypt is witnessing a fierce parliament race over 568 seats, divided equally into two phases.
After the 28% turnout in the first phase of the parliament elections, it appears that political parties and everyone engaged in these elections are willing to do whatever it takes to boost these figures. But will these efforts be enough? Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Meanwhile, Libyan politicians from rival administrations met in the coastal town of Bosnika, south of Morocco's capital Rabat, in their latest round of peace talks. The meeting comes ahead of another sit-down scheduled this month in Tunisia. These talks follow a permanent United Nations-backed ceasefire agreement signed in Geneva last month. Warring factions returned to the negotiating table in September. Mediators are pushing for parallel efforts to broker peace, with the military track taking place this week for the first time on Libyan soil. Libya has been in conflict for nearly a decade and is now divided between two rival administrations based in the east and west of the country.
During this meeting, we discussed a number of things, the most important of which were, first, how to conduct the Libyan political dialogue, which is considered an exclusive Libyan matter. Secondly, the agreement on the decision-making mechanism through political dialogue. We also discussed the legal and professional criteria for choosing personalities who hold the highest positions in the executive branch, as well as the priorities for the work of the executive during the preliminary stage.
Tunisia says it will take back from France its citizens suspected of being radical Islamists. This after last week's deadly attack in Nice. It was allegedly carried out by Tunisian jihadists. On Friday, Interior Minister Taoufik Sharfeddine held talks with his French counterpart, Gerald Darmanin. The two agreed that the return of the suspects will be in line with international law. Sources close to Darmanin say 70% of over 230 foreigners staying illegally in France and suspected of radicalism are from the Maghreb region and Russia. The Maghreb region includes Tunisia and Algeria.
We consider that this ideology has nothing to do with religions, as you have said extremely well. But this ideology kills and we must fight it. And I thank you, Mr. Minister, after the long exchange we had, for being able to continue doing this work, for being able to exchange information and fight against those who want to undermine our friendship and fraternal relationship between our peoples.
Cameroon's volatile Anglophone regions continue battling splinter groups emerging from a separatist movement. Separatist forces have been blamed for recent attacks on schools. In a recent incident, at least 7 school children were killed in the southwest Anglophone region. Educational institutions have been targeted as they fail to comply with demands by separatists to shut down.
The recent attacks underscore the precarious security situation in some English-speaking areas of Cameroon.
How do you look at a kid and pull the trigger? It's not like, okay, you come somewhere and you open fire and stray bullets. Look at the kid face to face begging for his life, her life, and you open fire, like you go to the next. How do you muster that kind of courage to do that? I felt really bad, and it still hurts. It still hurts to know that till now the murderers have not been identified. Everybody denies claim over it. Man, those kids, it could be me, I'm a student. It could be my younger brother, it could be my younger sister.
It is painful because we believe killing a child, killing the children is killing the future of a nation.
The death of at least 7 students late last month brought the reality of the violence close home to those who lost their loved ones. Gunmen stormed a private school in the southwestern city of Kumba and opened fire indiscriminately on the children there.
Concerning school, I would say it is important to educate your children. It is the best investment you can make. However, I will call on the government to resolve the conflict so that the children can go back to school safely. Today, this tragic incident happened to us, but it can also happen to another family.
The perpetrators have not yet been identified. The school is located in an area where separatist insurgents operate. Local residents have suffered multiple attacks.
I feel like the perpetrators should be brought to book. The government should do everything is possible, everything in its power to bring those who committed such outrageous crime to book.
The state is one of our source of protection. So if my child died or other children died in school, it means the state was not actually there to protect them, because my daughter never committed any crime. The only thing she did was going to school for a better future and to be a better lady in her community. And my heart bleeds a lot because her death was so tragic. She went through a lot of pain.
Anglophone secessionists have imposed curfews and closed schools as part of their protest against the French-speaking government. They say they have been largely marginalized as the English-speaking minority. More than 3,000 people have died in the conflict since 2017 as Anglophone separatists attempt to break away from the state. Jane Keo, CGTN.
That news continues on Africa Live. We've got your sports news coming up in just a moment. Here's a look at the headlines. The 2022 Africa Cup qualifiers to go ahead behind closed doors.
It's just taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
You don't find the stories of North Africa by sitting on the sidelines. You've got to get out, go there, and you'll find them. In the bazaars of Casablanca, among the crowds in Cairo,
Who come to visit Cairo, the ancient capital of Egypt.
along the waters of the Nile, along the sands of the Sahara. No one else will take you where we can in North Africa. No one else will show you what it's all about. CGTN, see the difference.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN, see the difference.
Welcome into Sport on Africa Live. All 48 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers between November 9th and the 17th will be played behind closed doors because of the coronavirus pandemic. In a statement, the Confederation of African Football says the matches will proceed despite more than 1.8 million cases of coronavirus and over 44,000 deaths on the continent. These matches will be the first since last November, when the first 2 Cup of Nations match days were played. Another 2 rounds of matches are scheduled for over 9 days from next week, and the final 2 rounds will be played next March. There are 12 groups of 4 teams, and the winners and runners-up in all except one qualify for the 2022 tournament in Cameroon. Let's talk a bit of rugby. South Africa Rugby World Cup winner Chelson Colby has been ruled out until the end of November with a hip problem. The 27-year-old rugby star, who has scored 7 tries in as many games this season, suffered the injury in the win at Brève on October 17th. In a statement, his Toulouse club said the winger could make his return for the fixture against Asian on the weekend of November the 28th. Toulouse, the record 20-time champions, will be without 5 France squad members for this weekend's home derby against Castres. And Spanish football side Real Madrid have confirmed that their 2 players, Eden Hazard and Casemiro, have tested positive for COVID-19. The test results were made available on Friday night, and all other members of the Real Madrid team, alongside staff members, returned with negative results when they performed a new set of tests on Saturday. Now, both Casemiro and Hazard will miss Sunday's match against Valencia and won't travel with their national teams during the international break. Real Madrid remains in second place in the standings behind leaders Real Sociedad. The Italian Football Federation has announced that the country's football coach, Roberto Mancini, has tested positive for COVID-19. In a statement, the federation said that the 55-year-old was asymptomatic and in a self-isolation at his home in Rome. Italy have